any experience of concordancing? Here are two places you can find some free concordancing software. One, sadly, called the Simple Concordancing Program, is not simple. Well, it may be for people who understand these things, but I think it took me a few weeks to get my head around it. And then this other one, written by a former student of mine, which is very, very simple. You choose a group of texts, a little bit like you would in My Computer searching for files. You select them, and then you can click on an icon to search through all of these files with the word of your choice, and it copies them all into context sentences. It's very useful. Sadly, a lot of teachers I meet say, "Oh, that's great, I can make lots of tests." And I say, no, have a look at the language. And I'd like to give you an example of a simple way of analysing language within text. I have to come out with this now to do that. So that's. You should have this. Oops, oh no, hang on. You should have a text. You should have a text in your handouts. It's a very long text, and I hope everybody can see one. We've got 30 in a full room, so maybe one between 3, I'm afraid. If you can't see a text, stick your hand up and we'll try and shuffle you around, because I've got an extra one and another one behind me. And what I'd like you to do very, very quickly is a simple discourse analysis task. Having a look at this text, just go through it and underline the verb phrases that you can find, and this is from biology, which describe structure, function and location of cells and tissues. I'll give you an example. Some of you might be saying, what on earth was that? In the first line, you can see today scientists using powerful microscopes are able to observe what makes up cells. The verb makes up, the verb phrase makes up, is useful for describing structure of cells and tissues. What I'd like you to do is go through and underline any verbs you can find like that for structure, function or location. Don't worry, I won't make you do the whole thing. Hi, please, come in. Listen, let me stop you, because we don't have time to do the whole thing, but you have a taste of the kind of thing I like to do with teachers, is to get them to analyse the text within their own textbooks. Shout some out to me. What have we got here? Made up of, usually with adverbial phrases. Contains comes next there, doesn't it? Contains, could be structure, could be function. What other verb phrases have you found? Consists. Looks like, I think I heard somebody shout. Something. The colleague who originally got me onto this idea produced a handout specifically for this area of her subject, which was biology. And the handout looks like this. Can you see that at the back? It's really the result of that analysis that you started. And what my colleague Stefka did here was to put the verb phrases in an organised table. So you have verb phrases for talking about structure, verb phrases for talking about location, function, verb phrases for talking about type, which I didn't ask you to do, and also an extra box for adverbials. Biology teachers, or teachers who know a bit about biology, if you're going to teach cells, tissues, organs and systems in the human organism or plant organisms, what do you want students to be able to do at the end of, say, that unit on that work?
You want them to be able to describe a cell. I mean, you want them to be able to pass the information on to somebody else. You want them to be able to understand the information, firstly, and then also to be able to transmit the information to somebody else. So.
And in your curriculum document, if you look in the national curriculum document in the UK, it will say, describe plant cells and animal cells. Talk about the function of cells, different cells. Maybe make comparison. We don't have comparison here. And the verb phrases are part and parcel of that learning process. Native speaker kids may not need this language, although there is area for space for argument as well here. But students who are studying science through English as a foreign language need the verbs in order to make sentences, I think. Something else I wanted to show is the idea of organising words. I work with students who do study their science, their history, their geography in English. And do you know what they do with new words? They write them in lists. Randomly organised lists, which usually come in the order they find them in their textbooks. They copy them out, And then they put the Bulgarian and maybe the transcription if they know it. And they got vocabulary books or vocabulary sheets with hundreds and hundreds of words. When they learn them, they put a hand over the first column and try and recall them. This is very simple, isn't it? But it's much easier to remember these words in a diagram like this, or other kind of visual representation of relationships between the words. In a list which is randomly organised, there is no relationship unless they come under the same topic in the textbook. This appears in the publication. I haven't mentioned it yet, have I, Claire? I'm sorry. Macmillan asked me to write a science vocabulary practice book and CD to go with their vocabulary practice series. And each unit, and there are 30 of them, starts with a word map like this. It's not really a mind map, because Buzan suggests putting colour, images and all sorts of things in the mind maps. It's just an organisation based on relationships within the unit of work. And a gap fill. Here they're classified, aren't they? Yes. 2 areas of, I've forgotten what the topic was, with 2 branches. You can look at language from the sentence level and frequently identify core sentences, chop them up and get students to match them together again. Or match 2 items, a term and a definition. Or choose the correct item from a list of several, like this example. Here we've got a text which is to do with pollination, and the table separates the text into 2 columns, insect pollinated flowers and wind pollinated flowers. With this task the students have to read the sentences and match the sentence with a keyword and choose which flower pollination it goes with. I have to stop there because I'm not really sure I know the answers to this, even though I wrote it. But it's a simple kind of ELT type of task, isn't it? Yeah, read and transfer, read and match. With speaking tasks in subject teaching, in my experience, most of the speaking goes on between the students and the teacher, usually questions and answers, or usually students talking on a subject with some oral support from the teacher, frequently for assessment purposes. It's very rare in my school to find my colleagues do the kind of speaking activities I imagine a lot of you do in your English classrooms, where you get students to work in groups and speak. Maybe you create information gap tasks and get your students to speak. Maybe you create speaking that involves the whole class.